That night, I was mopping the hotel corridor when I saw my boss, Amelia Hartman, stumble out of the elevator, drunk, her coworkers pulling out their phones, laughing. Something in me just refused to let that happen. I caught her before she fell, guided her away, made sure no one saw. I thought it ended there. But the next morning, she walked into the lobby, looked straight at me, and said, "We need to talk." The corridor's gold sheen meant nothing to Ethan by that hour. It was just light on stone, another stretch of floor he'd cross with a mop and a trash caddy before catching the last bus home to his daughter. 5 years in this building had taught him to keep his head down and his pace steady. Then the elevator chimed, laughter spilled out, and the hallway filled with the sweet bite of champagne and a crowd of executives loosened by victory and alcohol. Amelia Hartman emerged with them, poised in reputation, unsteady in step. Her heels skittered on the marble, and a chorus of amused gasps rose as phones came up, lenses hunting for a moment that could be replayed forever. Ethan stopped where he stood. Power didn't matter. Money didn't matter. Here was a person about to be reduced to a clip and a caption. "Hold on," he said, quietly to no one and everyone, and moved. He reached her just as she listed toward the floor, catching her by the forearms, not gripping, just steadying. "You're okay," he murmured, letting his voice be the calm that her balance wasn't. A few in the group chuckled. A couple whispered, "Get this, get this." Ethan angled his body between Amelia and the cameras, guiding her down a side corridor where the light softened and the noise thinned. The phones lost interest at the first turn. The door to a private lounge opened with a soft latch, and he eased her onto a sofa far from the glass and the glitter. Close up, she was still striking, eyes bright with tears she couldn't place, mascara blurred. "I'm fine," she mumbled, the words dissolving as soon as they left her mouth. Ethan brought water, crouched so she didn't have to reach, and set his jacket over her shoulders when a shiver worked through her. No one saw, he promised. Rest. Her breathing evened, the tension in her hands unclenched, and sleep pulled her down gently instead of shame dragging her there. He sat a few feet away, present without hovering, listening to the small sounds of the building at night. Vents humming, elevators sighing, the distant clink of glassware being stacked. It would have been easy to leave. Easier still to say it wasn't his place. But he'd made himself a quiet rule long ago. If you can spare someone harm with the strength you have, you do it. He looked at the clock, then thought of Lily sleeping with her teddy bear, and stayed. When the lounge lights dimmed on the timer, he rose, checked the hallway, and returned to find Amelia sleeping more peacefully than when she arrived. He folded the edge of the jacket a little higher at her collarbone and set the half-empty glass of water within reach. On his way out, he turned the handle slowly so the latch wouldn't click. Back in the corridor, the floor was his again, quiet, ordinary, forgiving. He picked up the mop where he'd left it and finished the shift as if the night hadn't shifted anything at all. The sun would be up soon. So would the lobby. And some things, he knew, were better left unannounced. By sunrise, the lobby had already returned to its rhythm of polished smiles and distant perfume. Ethan moved through it like any other morning. Vacuum cord coiled at his feet, coffee cooling on the cart, the scent of wax still clinging to his sleeves. The night before felt almost unreal, a story that belonged to someone else. He'd left before Amelia woke, convinced she would never even know who had helped her. For people like her, embarrassment evaporated by morning and the world kept applauding. When the elevator doors opened, her arrival scattered his thoughts. Amelia stepped out in a slate gray suit, hair tied back, face composed. Yet her eyes carried something unguarded, an unfamiliar searching. She looked across the room, scanning staff, until they landed on him. Ethan turned quickly, pretending to focus on a smudge on the floor, but her voice stopped him. "Mr. Miller." He froze mid-motion. She rarely addressed anyone from maintenance by name. He straightened, hesitant. "Good morning, ma'am." She drew closer, the clack of her heels measured, her tone soft but steady. "I remember last night," she said quietly. "You helped me." There was no arrogance in her voice, only gratitude laced with embarrassment. "You didn't have to, but you did." Ethan shook his head. "Anyone would have done the same." "That's not true," she replied. "I know the world I live in." For a second, her composure wavered. "If those cameras had caught me like that," she stopped herself, exhaling. "Thank you." Her sincerity disarmed him more than any formal praise could. Around them, the lobby carried on. Phones ringing, suitcases rolling, conversations blending into white noise. Yet the air between them felt suspended, fragile with understanding. He nodded, unsure what else to offer. "I'm glad you're all right." She managed a small smile, brief but genuine. "You have a daughter, don't you?" "Yes, ma'am. Lily." "Then I imagine she's proud of her father." She looked like she might say more, but simply turned and left, her perfume lingering faintly after her. Ethan watched the elevator doors close, wondering why that single exchange left his chest heavy and light at once. To her, it was a moment of gratitude. To him, it was proof that sometimes decency reached higher than he ever thought it could. Days blurred into routine again, yet something had undeniably shifted in the hotel's air. Ethan noticed it first in the silence, the kind that lingered when people didn't quite know how to act around change. Amelia began appearing in places she'd never set foot before: the laundry room, the staff cafeteria, even the narrow service corridors that smelled faintly of detergent and metal. At first, everyone thought it was an inspection, another of her efficiency drives. But she didn't carry a clipboard this time. She carried curiosity. She stopped by Ethan's station one afternoon while he was buffing the lobby floor. "You've been here 5 years?" she asked, almost casually. "Yes, ma'am," he said, eyes on the machine, polite as ever. "Why this job?" He hesitated. Few people ever asked why, only how well. "Because it's steady," he answered finally. "Because it lets me be home when my daughter gets out of school." Her expression softened. "I see." Over the following week, their brief exchanges grew into small conversations, fragments of a life he'd long kept private. He told her about Lily's drawings taped across his apartment wall, about the wife he'd lost to illness, and about the business degree he never finished because tuition had to become hospital bills. He never complained. He simply recited facts, as if pain was just another ledger entry. Amelia listened, really listened, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt seen. Behind her practiced authority, he glimpsed loneliness. She stayed late at the hotel almost every night, yet her eyes betrayed exhaustion deeper than work could cause. Once, as they passed in the hallway, she said quietly, "You ever get used to people only seeing what you can do for them?" He looked at her for a long moment and said, "No, ma'am. You just learn to keep doing it anyway." It became a quiet pattern, a few words between tasks, shared smiles, a growing respect unspoken but unmistakable. And then, the change spread. Amelia started greeting other staff by name. She ate lunch in the break room once, a rumor that rippled through the building faster than gossip usually did. "The Ice Queen's melting," someone whispered. Ethan only smiled, knowing better. She wasn't melting. She was thawing back into something human. When she passed him in the lobby later that week, she paused, nodding at his mop. "You make this place shine, Mr. Miller." He replied gently, "It's easier when people notice the light." The charity gala glimmered beneath the chandeliers like a scene from another world. Ethan moved quietly along the ballroom's edge, polishing the marble tiles until they reflected the light in perfect symmetry. To him, it was just another night, another event for people who would never know his name. Yet, when he looked up and saw Amelia crossing the floor in an elegant black gown, he felt that same faint pull in his chest, the one he couldn't quite explain. She spotted him and paused. The noise of the gala softened around them, replaced by something more personal. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice calm but earnest, "I've been wanting to speak with you." He straightened, unsure whether to meet her eyes or look away. "Yes, ma'am." Amelia smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and resolve. "That night, you didn't just help me. You stopped me from destroying something I've worked years to build. You didn't judge, didn't hesitate. You treated me like a person." He shifted awkwardly, glancing toward the polished floor. "Ma'am, you don't owe me anything. That's where you're wrong." She took a breath, her expression softening. "You see, I did some reading. I know you studied business before life got in the way. I also know you had to give it up to raise your daughter." Ethan's hands tensed on the handle of the cleaning cart. "I don't like people looking into my past." "I wasn't prying," she said gently. "I was trying to understand the man who reminded me what leadership means." He said nothing. Amelia reached into her clutch and produced an envelope. Inside is an offer, tuition assistance, flexible shifts, and a place in our management training program. You've already earned it, whether you believe it or not. He blinked, caught between disbelief and pride. Ma'am, I'm just the janitor. She met his gaze. No, Ethan. You're the reason I decided to become better at my job, and at being human. The words struck him deeper than he expected. He nodded slowly, unable to speak. She smiled again, softer this time. You once told me anyone would have done what you did. I'm here to tell you that's not true. As she walked away, Ethan stood there, the envelope heavy in his hand. For years, he had believed kindness went unnoticed. But that night, under the golden light of a room he was never meant to belong in, he finally understood what it meant to be seen. Ethan kept the envelope for 2 days before daring to open it. Each night, after Lily fell asleep, he sat at their small kitchen table, staring at his reflection in the window. The city lights shimmered faintly beyond the glass, like promises made to other men. He'd long ago accepted that his path was set: work, save, survive. Yet Amelia's offer lingered like a second chance he didn't think men like him got twice. When he finally unfolded the papers, he saw her handwritten note clipped to the top. Kindness deserves a future. Those 4 words undid something inside him. The next morning, he met with human resources to accept. By evening, the hotel buzzed with quiet talk. The janitor was going back to school. Some called it charity, others called it favoritism. Ethan called it responsibility. His days grew longer but lighter. He'd wake before dawn, pack Lily's lunch, and walk her to school, her small hand warm in his. Then came the morning shift at the hotel, the evening classes, and hours of studying once she was asleep. Fatigue followed him everywhere, but so did purpose. Amelia checked in often, not as a boss, but as someone invested in his progress. She arranged for his schedule to flex around exams, made sure he had the materials he needed, even surprised Lily with new school supplies from the company. Each gesture embarrassed him a little, but she never treated it like charity, only partnership. Sometimes, when their paths crossed in the lobby, she'd ask softly, "Still keeping up?" He'd smile, eyes tired but proud, trying to set an example. Months passed, seasons shifted. Ethan finished his coursework with grades that shocked even him. Yet the bigger change wasn't on paper. It was in how he carried himself. The man who once walked with his eyes down now greeted guests with quiet confidence. And though Amelia never said it aloud, she noticed. The world around them hadn't changed much, but they had. Snow fell softly outside the hotel's glass entrance, swirling under the golden lights like flecks of slow-moving grace. Inside, the grand hall buzzed with laughter and warmth. For the first time in the hotel's history, every employee, from executives to janitors, sat together at one long line of tables. No reserved sections, no hierarchy, just people sharing food and stories. It had been Amelia's idea, and everyone knew it. Ethan arrived with Lily, her hand tucked in his, her red scarf nearly swallowing her smile. He'd hesitated to come, feeling out of place among managers and staff alike, but Amelia had insisted. "It's your celebration too," she'd said. The music quieted as Amelia stepped onto the stage, a microphone in hand. She looked radiant yet grounded, not the distant CEO people once whispered about, but a woman who'd found meaning in humility. "Tonight isn't about titles," she began. "It's about remembering that the foundation of this place isn't marble or glass. It's people, people who give it life." Her eyes moved across the crowd until they met Ethan's. She smiled, and something unspoken passed between them. "A while ago," she continued, "someone here reminded me that leadership isn't about power. It's about compassion. That lesson changed me, and this company." A ripple of curiosity ran through the room. No one knew whom she meant, but when her gaze lingered a second too long in Ethan's direction, the truth revealed itself without a word. Applause rose first in pockets, then spread until it filled the hall. Ethan sat frozen, stunned, while Lily clapped with both hands, her small voice shouting, "Daddy, they're clapping for you." He swallowed hard, blinking fast. In that moment, years of invisible work, the long nights, the quiet sacrifices, were seen. Truly seen. Afterward, Amelia approached him quietly amid the noise. "You did more than you know," she said. "You didn't just save me from humiliation. You gave me perspective." He shook his head, smiling through the blur in his eyes. "You gave it meaning." Outside, the snow kept falling, erasing the boundaries of footprints. as if the world itself was learning to see everyone on equal ground. A year later, the same sun rose through the lobby's tall windows, painting the floor Ethan once mopped with streaks of light. Only now, he didn't carry a mop, he carried a briefcase. His uniform had been replaced with a fitted suit, his ID badge marked operations manager. When he walked through the revolving doors, some of the newer staff greeted him with the respect reserved for management, unaware that he'd once scrubbed the very tiles beneath their feet. His first morning in the new office felt unreal. The desk gleamed, the air smelled faintly of cedar, and a note sat in the center, folded neatly. He recognized the handwriting instantly, Amelia's. "For the man who saved me," it read. "Not just that night, but from becoming someone I never wanted to be." He sat back in his chair, the words blurring slightly as he reread them. Outside, the hum of hotel life carried on, carts rolling, phones ringing, doors closing softly. Yet for Ethan, the world felt still, like the moment before a prayer. He thought of Lily, now in middle school, who'd watched him study at that same kitchen table night after night. He thought of how she'd hugged him that morning, whispering, "I'm proud of you, Daddy." Later that day, Amelia stopped by. No formalities, no distance. Just two people who'd walked parallel paths toward the same truth. "You've earned this," she said simply. He smiled. "I just did what anyone should do." She shook her head. "No, Ethan. You did what few would." They stood for a moment in quiet understanding. No declarations, no grand gestures, just gratitude, mutual and deep. The world beyond their glass office still ran on profit and power, but they both knew better now. What truly mattered couldn't be measured on any report. As the years went on, their friendship endured, rooted in respect, shaded by unspoken affection. Ethan often told Lily that the world rewards good hearts in its own time. And when she grew up, she would smile, remembering the night her father's simple act of decency changed more than one life. Sometimes, when the lobby lights flickered against the marble, Ethan would pause and watch their reflection, two figures side by side. A janitor once, a CEO still. Proof that kindness, when carried quietly, has a way of circling back home.